All right, one wasn't enough. You guys know the drill. It's becoming a regular habit here around Odd Shopper and around betting you. Betting you overtime is here. That means the greasy games, the games we didn't get into on the main episode. No, we're not going to be talking about all the marquee matchups. If you want those, the first episode is posted on this very YouTube channel. But if you want to hear about UMass and Buffalo, about Nevada and Minnesota, there is one really good game on here that we're going to get to, FIU and FAU. But you were saying to me, and I also mentioned this, I actually like more games on this little slate of breakdowns than we had in the first episode.
It's the same with me. I took more games this week. It might just be a product of me having my life together finally for the first couple weeks of the year. That's usually how it goes. But I agree with you. This is usually my favorite episode we do every single week.
Oh, yeah.
I have so much love for the Alabama, Wisconsin's, West Virginia, Pittsburgh rivalry. But I also have love for the Shula Bowl and all the little games we get each and every week too. Even, Coastal Carolina playing Temple. That's fun football. So yeah, I love this episode.
Very good. Temple's bad. We're going to get there. Don't worry. We're going to get there. Friends, you guys know the drill. If you're new to the channel, I want to just say welcome right off the bat. Take a look around. We've got a ton of college football content, a ton of content in general. Like, stay, subscribe, be part of. We're going to be at 150,000 pretty soon. It's because of you guys. The support means everything. Here we go. All right. No, we're not talking about Texas State. We already did that. We are starting with an actual good game, though. It really doesn't belong on this, but we need to talk about it. It is a lofty spread. That would be Boston College and Missouri. This is ranked versus ranked. Boston College has looked really good. Maybe Florida State sucks. We don't know. Duquesne is Duquesne. We obviously don't know. Missouri was a honorary wagon of this show. Is that still the same team? What do you expect in this matchup?
It's a lot of the same team, but they did have some changes. The biggest loss might be just looking at their defense. You did lose your DC, Blake Baker. He's at LSU now. And then they had a lot of defensive talent that's gone. On the edge, Darius Robinson's gone. At corner, Chris Abrams-Drain. His counterpart, Enos Rakestraw. All those guys left. They did a little bit to replace them. Toriano Pride comes in from Clemson at corner. You get Corey Flagg at linebacker, sort of an edge rushing hybrid. But it's a lot to replace, and we haven't seen them tested, so it's really impossible to know what this team is going to give you playing Buffalo and Murray State. They haven't allowed a point yet, which not really much of a surprise there. They do have a couple guys that are questionable. Brett Norfleet, their tight end, I think he's going to miss the game. He was labeled week to week. Cameron Johnson, their guard, is also questionable. And then on the other side, we're dealing with a pretty healthy Boston College team after they rolled Duquesne and didn't show really anything. So these two teams right now don't have a lot of weaknesses, but I think there are some questions with Missouri heading into this game not having been tested whatsoever, especially with the secondary they're going to try it out there. You played Murray State and Buffalo. Buffalo can't throw a forward pass. Murray State is Murray State. They have a completely new coaching staff after they were a disaster last year in the FCS. Boston College at least has looked good against a competent team in Florida State. Competent, at least what we think it should be a competent Florida State team. They have a veteran quarterback in Castellanos. He's looked very good so far this year. He does a lot with his legs, which is important. Their line has been pretty good. We expected that to be a strength of their team. Really, I just had questions on the defense with Boston College, and so far it's looked pretty good. Uiagalelei is definitely not Brady Cook. Their receivers are definitely not Luther Bird and Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper. But we're getting a lot of points here. So I want a 17. It's not out there. It flashed for a minute. I missed it. I don't have a 16.5 yet. But the last thing, pace should work in your favor here. Boston College still extremely slow, 124th in pace so far. Missouri is about middle of the pack at 77th, not expecting too much of a change through the year there. So the value of the point is worth a lot here. But I think we're undervaluing Boston College a little bit, overvaluing Missouri. We'll see. I still have nothing in the game.
Couldn't say literally as in line as can be. I missed 17. I'm waiting for 17. If it doesn't get there, I'll make a decision closer to kick. There's a couple 16.5s, slow, methodical pace. I don't think Boston College wins the game. Obviously, that'd be a pretty big leap, but Castellanos and co will be ready to go, and I do like them in general. So I'm looking at the Boston College side, but if you see 17 and you're in Discord, we'll talk about all that. Somebody alert me. Someone pay attention, and I will jump on that very quickly. All right, you already took a shot at UMass's opponent, which I like to see because it's the next game we're talking about. That's Buffalo, those fools. Now, UMass disgraced themselves in week 1 against Eastern Michigan. They played absolutely awful. They played better last week. Now, they lost to Toledo, but Toledo's a pretty good team. Now they're getting 4 points against Buffalo. I had this circled preseason as a big W for the Minutemen. I still feel that way. Do you feel that way?
That's definitely the side I lean to. I was hoping it was going to move the other way, but it's just moved against us. It's going to 4 in some spots. So if you like UMass, definitely take it now.
It's at 3.5 at a lot of books now.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can take a 3.5. When it was at 5, I was like, man, I hope we get a 6, and didn't take it. That didn't happen. It's a tough. Both these teams, you're not going to get much with injuries. What we do know is Buffalo, Nick McMillan's out 3 weeks. I don't know if that matters. They don't throw the ball at all. They have a really bad QB. We'll get into that. Their O-line has played like 8 different combinations already through 2 games. And some of that is Buffalo played Lafayette, and then they just got beat down 38-0 to Missouri. So they've been in 2 blowouts. Some of the shifting is just like probably backups getting some snaps and experience. But they're also doing that earlier in games too. It's a lot of different O-line combinations, which I'm not really that in love with this Buffalo team to begin with. So doing that's a problem. On the other side, UMass lost Anthony Simpson. I don't think he's going to play in this game. And then just horrific reporting. Their tight end, Dominic Mazzotti, played 6 snaps. Just be aware of that. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but he should be playing more than 6 snaps, so at least a concern. The QB battle, I think, is pretty decidedly a UMass advantage. Fomachan has a 66% completion. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but 6.2 yards per attempt. He runs. Agbana can't throw. He is a 45.5% completion. And what's driving most of that is an FCS opponent. He does run the ball very well, but teams have just been able to stack the box against him. O-line, I think, is an advantage UMass's way. They're allowing a 23% pressure rate. Buffalo is at 33%. Their O-lines are both kind of weird. Like UMass is 64th in pass blocking, 96th in run blocking. Buffalo is 130th in pass blocking, 37th in run blocking. But, like UMass is also pretty good at run defense. So far, according to efficiency metrics, they're 36th in run defense. That's all Buffalo can do. So it's definitely like I want to back UMass in a spot like this, but man, this team, I don't know if I can do it, man. Like they're almost on the ban list for me after their Eastern Michigan showing.
They are Akron-esque, where they find ways to just screw up games that they shouldn't. And then in other games, like I said, they show signs. I just don't really understand what that first game was. They lost 38-23 to Toledo. There's no shame in that. This is a opponent that they should be able to do. They have decisive advantages, in my opinion, particularly up front. I think they should win both sides of the ball. You're going to give me points. Now, I'm in New York, so take that for what it's worth. Can't bet the Buffalo side or game in general, but I think UMass is the right side. I'll roll my team again. I have the win total, so I have to have it. So I have a bet on this just in life. All right. One of the quiet, wild games last week was Virginia and Wake Forest. That was a crazy game, and now Virginia takes on Maryland, another game that has some intrigue, no doubt about it, and it's another competitive spread. The Hoos are a couple-point home underdog, actually. Live underdog here. What do you make of this spot? Maryland did not look good last week.
Maryland is a team that I've been selling Maryland all offseason. I hate this Maryland team. And largely it was a bet against Billy Edwards, their quarterback situation, unless I'm just wildly off on my evaluation. And obviously I'm not a scout or anything like that. This is probably likely. But I thought it was pretty negligent heading into the season with Billy Edwards as your quarterback. So far, he does have a 75.5% completion for 9.2 yards per attempt. Obviously, most of that is driven by a blowout win over UConn, who looked lifeless in the first game. There are some concerns here, I think, going against Virginia. But really, instead of taking anything on the spread and backing to either of these very volatile teams, I would rather just take an over. I don't think it's moved a lot. 54.5 is the number I got. And honestly, there was such a wide margin between the projection. If it moved overnight, I'm not even really that concerned. So right away, let's start with the defenses. They're both terrible for these teams. Maryland 79th on defense, Virginia is 82nd. Both their run defenses are outside the top 24. Maryland actually has a decent pass rush, but I think Virginia is actually going to get some reinforcements on their O-line. Mikhail Boley is day-to-day, and he's been listed like that and practicing more and more. So he might actually be back, which would help stifle that unit. Virginia can't rush the passer. They're 98th. Both teams are bad in coverage. Maryland is horrific in coverage. They're 108th right now. And both these offenses are decent. Billy Edwards has surprised. We mentioned some of his stats already. I think most of that being UConn, but still, like a 75.5% completion. It's better than I thought he would do. That has to be noted. The O-line's playing relatively well. The receivers only have 2 drops. That's certainly a strength. Maybe me underrating this team and Billy Edwards should have just leaned on the receivers and looked at Caden Prather and Ty Felton. They do have good receivers, so what does Billy Edwards really need to do? Colin Dre has also been awesome. He's at 9.9 yards per attempt. Their lines actually played pretty well despite Mikhail Boley being out. They only have a 16% pressure rate so far this year. And last thing, I guess, pace should be good in the game. Maryland 63rd, Virginia 10th. Both teams pass a fair amount. Virginia's up at 61%. And we've already seen these defenses allow a lot of production. Maryland just allowed 9.3 yards per pass attempt to Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs was below 5 yards per attempt against FAU. The running backs went crazy against this team from Michigan State. They allowed 4.9 yards per carry to Darrell Robinson from UConn. It hasn't been that much better on the Virginia side. They allowed 9.6 yards per attempt to Hank Bachmeier. And they actually allowed 10.9 yards per carry to a running back from an FCS team in week 1. So, defenses are bad, pace is good, offenses are reasonable. I like an over.
Over sits at 57.5. Are you still okay with that number?
Yeah, it's under 58, the key number.
Yep. Okay, cool. And again, that's a perfect time. I just want to mention this very briefly. Always, again, you watch these shows and you say, wait, so the number moved. It's why you want to be right here in Tails. You see all this content. Come on in here and get inside the ropes. The Discords, me and Matt have our Discords up. We're dropping plays. We're answering questions. We're giving info. It takes you right here. As you can see, this is mine right here. We have some really cool stuff going on. The links are below. Even if you come in for the week, check it out. Come in this weekend. Stop in. You got MMA. You've got college football, NFL. It's a great time in there. Make sure you get those best lines. Make sure you get that best info. Come and join us. Again, links are below. Here we go. Keeping it moving, and we go to I got a lot of questions. I have no answers, but I got a lot of questions for you. And that's all about Texas Tech. I watched Texas Tech play Washington State, and it was a mess. It was just a deranged game. I didn't know what was going on. What is going on with this team? Simply put, are they even equipped to handle North Texas, who's a team I think at certain points we bought last year?
Yeah, we did buy at points. We like their offense. We also bought them at the wrong time. I think you and I both had them against Cal in the opener, did we not?
We certainly did.
That was a loser.
That was bad. I remember that.
Texas Tech is unbettable to me right now. It's either North Texas or pass. I took North Texas at +12 on Sunday night. That was just being aware of the injury report. Here's what we're dealing with. A lot of these guys are starters. At the very least, most of them are contributors. Outside linebacker, edge rusher Dylan Spencer, out. Joseph Adedayo, same position, out. Vinny Scurry, guard, out. Charles Esters, edge rusher, out. Javion Wilcox, corner, out. Questionable players that some of these guys are for sure not going to play. Baskerville at safety, questionable. Taj Brooks didn't play last week. John Curry at linebacker, Harvey Dyson, edge, Mo Horn, corner, Brendan Jordan, defensive back, Quincy Ledet, defensive tackle, Braylon Lux, corner, Sterling Porsche, tackle. A lot of those guys either missed last week or got hurt in the game. This team is starting like 9 backups. Not even kidding. It's getting close to double-digit backups. So when you have double-digit backups, it's North Texas on the other side. Typically, you're going to have a talent advantage over North Texas. But this team isn't recruiting like Alabama. We don't have like 5-star backups for Texas Tech. A lot of these guys probably are going to be transferring to North Texas in the near future or a program of that same caliber. So are like the 9 backups that are playing for Texas Tech better than North Texas's starters? I find that hard to believe. Chandler Morris is actually a very good player. He's a down transfer from TCU, really mobile, which is also an area Texas Tech has struggled. We just saw them just get absolutely blasted by John Mateer in Washington State last week. 9.4 yards per attempt to a dual threat quarterback, 6.3 yards per carry to Wayshawn Parker. Like, my goodness.
It was bad.
And what can they do? They just don't have any players that are available to actually be on the field for this team. There's definitely less concerns on injury stuff for North Texas as well. Most of their players expected to play. They got a couple offensive linemen that were called day to day. I think they all go. No one else is even notably out for this team. So, I mean, money lines, I think, are reasonable here. Like, I don't think Washington State's a very good team. And they got absolutely destroyed by that team.
I watched it. I saw it with my own eyes.
I bet.
Upwards of, I had the over like an idiot. Upwards of 3-1 for North Texas. You okay with the sprinkle?
Sprinkle, yeah.
Okay.
What's the current line? I got a +12 originally.
There's 9.5s out there.
That's not so bad, yeah. I mean, if you're really worried, buy a half point or something. I don't think it matters too much.
There's, like I said, +300 is pretty nice. For
also,
team.
one last thing, Baron Morton is not good.
Yeah, that is something to note. Yeah, You already mentioned the yards per attempt and then what they did on the ground. Washington State was gashing them.
That's an air raid offense.
Yeah, it was bad, really bad.
They're also not playing their 5-star receiver, Micah Hudson. Like, if a fully healthy Texas Tech to go over their win total, I don't know what their goals are. They're not actually going to win anything, and nor were they. You need your 5-star receiver to play if you're going to try to actually achieve your goals. You're playing a bunch of scrubs. Like, I can't see Dre McCray on the field with your 5-star freshman not getting snaps. Just like, get this team out of my eyes.
Mean Green season. Yeah, I might do some lotto parlays with North Texas money line and see what I can find. All right. I can't believe I should have checked this closer. This team they don't deserve to be in the show. And that's Cincinnati. What in the hell was that last week? That was the most tilting loss I had in a really good week, but they gave the game away. Now they take on a Miami of Ohio team that I saw them against Northwestern, competitive. This is a team that could compete for the MAC, no doubt about it. 3.5-point home underdog. Is this a live upset spot?
I don't think so. I'm buying low on Cincinnati again.
Okay.
The real concern I have is Scott Satterfield. I'm just not sure he's a good coach.
No.
He was kind of a failure with Louisville. He got blasted by Narduzzi in the halftime adjustments. Just blasted. I don't know what he did or what he saw, but they had success in the first half, so maybe his approach was just everything's working, let's keep doing it. And then Narduzzi got him good, which is definitely what happened. But they did some stupid stuff too. Delay of games, giving Pitt first downs, missing field goals, stuff that shouldn't be happening. Cincinnati was definitely doing stuff like that. So in this game, you play Miami, Ohio, a MAC team, a good one. But I still think there's a pretty wide talent gap. Miami, Ohio, the score should have been even wider against Northwestern, which says a lot because Northwestern just benched their quarterback and lost to Duke. But there's a lot of concerns with this team. This team missed a field goal already. Like, the special team stuff is pretty questionable, and it's a tight spread. There's only a couple guys that are really banged up for Cincinnati right now that I'm concerned with. It's Josh Minkins basically at safety, and that's it. Otherwise, like, everyone else I had questions with either has been ruled out for a while or like it's basically just Corleone, and he's back. Sorsby's been pretty good. The O-line is decent. They're better at run blocking than anything else. And this team can really pound the ball on the ground. We saw it last week with that O-line and Kiner. They were just demolishing Pitt and then somewhat got away from it at the end of the half. Now you're going up against a defense, I think, where you do have some success. It's one game sample, but Miami, Ohio 71st against the run. That was against a weird Northwestern offense, who I think is a worse offensive line and worse running back situation than what Cincinnati has. Miami, Ohio also was 123rd in pass blocking, 48th in run blocking in that first game. With Corleone back, there might be a comparable front seven here between Cincinnati and Northwestern. I personally thought the Northwestern defense was going to be awesome and perhaps overrated them a little bit because they have not lived up to expectations. But Miami's struggling with that, not really a good sign. Cincinnati playing one amazing half, one terrible half. We'll see. Their defense is a concern. 8.6 yards per attempt to Eli Holstein, 7.8 yards per carry to Des Reed in the backfield. I'm just not sure if Miami, Ohio has anyone to exploit that. You know, like Brett Gabbert had some good efficiency numbers, but Larvardane's gone. Joe Wilkins gone. Rashad Amos, he's at Ole Miss. They don't have any good skill position players anymore. Everyone left. So I don't know. I think Cincinnati is fine. I took them -1.5. Around 3 is where I would try to go right now.
You know, you mentioned this, and I don't even know why I want to recap it because it just pisses me off. But Cincinnati, they had a delay of game on defense, and that's what was the biggest play of the game. That really killed them late in the game. What is that? What is that? Like, I digress. Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. The delay of game was on their defense, and it really, in the middle of the pit run, was a killer.
The game's over if they don't do that.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Highly disturbing. Duke and UConn. We just talked about both of these teams in various opponents. UConn put forward an awful effort against Maryland. Then they played, I think it was Merrimack, I'm almost certain. They won by like 80. I was watching just a little of it. And then Duke, of course, yeah, I had to see because Merrimack's on UMass's schedule. So I needed to see what we were getting into in the future. I watched Duke in full. I had Northwestern in that game. I thought Northwestern gave the game away. I'm not a fan of Duke, but I'm not sure I can back UConn either. 16.5-point spread. I know Duke should be the rightful favorite. Saw them against Elon as well. I'm not a biggest Malik Murphy guy. What do you say here? Who has the decisive advantages?
I'm taking an over.
Over, okay.
I think Duke has decided advantages, but I'm not laying points with Duke. But what if I told you UConn is playing with the 33rd ranked pace, Duke is playing with the 29th. UConn is throwing 52.5% of the time. Duke is throwing 58th. And UConn ranks 127th on defense, where Duke ranks 72nd. A lot of bad defenses. A lot of plays going to come off in this game. And I don't know. I don't think Malik Murphy or whatever combination UConn uses between Joe Fagnano or Evers, I don't think any of them are good, but I think they can take advantage of the opposing defenses. Like, my goodness, some of these numbers these teams have allowed are egregious. 11.5 yards per attempt to Billy Edwards. This is UConn we're talking about when they played Maryland. All their running backs were over 4.7 yards per carry or better. That's just the worst number I saw. They allowed 6.2 yards per attempt to Merrimack QBs, and they played like 3 of them. And then yards per carry, they allowed 7.4 to Jermaine Corbett on 14 carries. Horrific. On the Duke side, I'm surprised to see their efficiency metrics come in this bad, considering they played Elon and then they played Mike Wright's Northwestern. But Cam Porter was at 6 yards per carry against this team. Northwestern was having a lot of success running the ball. I have no idea why they ever decided to throw a pass.
That's correct.
They're also doing like a bunch of weird stuff. It's a complete overhaul in the offense, and they definitely weren't playing to Mike Wright's strengths, which basically is just being Wildcat QB. But we'll see here. UConn's offense actually ranks 16th in efficiency. Duke's ranks 100th, so take that for what it's worth. But I do think there's a little more talent on the Duke side in this game. Regardless, I think pace, pass rate, and both these defenses being pretty damn bad set up in our favor.
47.5 is out there. Is that okay with you?
That's what I took. It's never moved to my knowledge. That's what it opened at.
It ticked up to 48 at a few books, but that's about
Oh.
it. You can easily get 47.5, no problem.
Yeah, that's what I have too. That was the opening number. This is one of the few ones that like has been parked all week almost.
I may jump on the bandwagon because I think I've just got soured by Duke. Their offense has not looked good, but UConn's defense should be the antidote for any of that because there's really no defending what they put on the field. All right, we got a handful more games. We'll do that. I also want to mention, no better time to mention this because you have a big betting card. You say, man, wish I had a couple extra units to deploy. Well, you can do that with Bet365 if they're in your state. $200 in bonus bets. That will certainly boost the bankroll. All you got to do, link is below. If you sign up, deposit $10, bet 5. Bet it on one of these games. Win or lose. $200 in bonus bets coming your way. It's that simple. Got to be 21 plus, 18 in Kentucky. Please play responsibly. If you do have a gambling problem, please call 1-800 gambler, but that is a great way to get some extra funds for the bankroll. And then you can use it on Minnesota and not Northwestern and Nevada. These are teams. Minnesota did respond, but they were playing an FCS opponent. As I type in Rhode Island, that's who they were playing. Now they take on this Nevada team who, I don't know, maybe SMU has exposed themselves as extreme frauds. So who knows what's going on there. Another pretty wide spread. Is this too many points, or is Minnesota that much better?
I still like Nevada. This is one of the bad lines I took early in the week. I took a 14.5. It moved all the way to 17.5 where I took it again. But there's one fatal flaw for Nevada that Minnesota should try to exploit. I just am not really that confident their coaching staff is smart enough to do intelligent things. Nevada's run defense currently ranks 110th. They're 131st in tackling. Those are the biggest concerns facing Minnesota, who is very willing to just ground and pound the ball to dust. They do have Darius Taylor back. They're not using him quite like they used to. He's going to lead the backfield, but adding Marcus Major, Bangura, all the players they brought in the portal allows them to hopefully keep him healthy and spell him throughout the year. But, this Minnesota offensive line still is concerning to me. I thought they were going to be much better than they have been. They're 71st in pass blocking, 100th in run blocking. Brosmer, I think, has not looked good to start. He has a 72.5% completion for 8.5 yards per attempt. All that came against Rhode Island. He was at 62% against North Carolina. Again, the O-line is allowing a decent amount of pressure. The receivers have a 15% drop rate. They have not been good. I thought they were going to be better too. They added a lot of extreme talent. But, they're not playing a highly recruited player like Tyler Williams, instead getting the same scrubs they played last year. So not a PJ Fleck guy. I don't think he's a very coach. The rumor that he sniffed around at UCLA is laughable, that a program like that would ever even consider a guy like PJ Fleck. Their special teams are horrible. Their kicker, I don't know what happened to him. He missed 2 kicks in the first game. He was kicker of the year in the conference last year. And what this comes down to for me is Nevada's better than I thought they were. I need to give them some credit. Brendan Lewis is playing reasonably well. He has a 67% completion, and they have not played a lot of cupcakes. That team has played SMU. Troy might be a cupcake, but, they were nearly a touchdown underdog. And then they played Georgia Southern in a game they had a 99% post-game win expectancy and found a way to lose. That was largely because of penalties. They had 14 of them, and most of them were egregious personal fouls. Like, Choate in his press conference was so mad about this. He said he was going to start benching players who get personal fouls because they just could not keep their hands to themselves after the whistle. But I think Lewis is fine for what this offense asked him to do, basically a game manager and then run the ball. He already has 208 rushing yards. O-line's a concern, but Minnesota's defense also hasn't shown me anything either. That defense is 124th in tackling and 64th in total defense. Both teams are slow, especially Minnesota. That team is 103rd in pace. Nevada's actually played slower than that, which surprised me. They're 110th. The value of the point is very important here. I don't see Minnesota blowing out any teams other than FCS teams really at any point this year. So I'll take the value of the point with, I guess, a 14.5 and a 17.5 are the 2 tickets I'm holding.
Yeah, there's 17.5s out there right now, a bunch of them. And you mentioned the total in the game is very low. So clearly the implied total for Nevada is very low. If they can manufacture any points, that could be enough. All right, so let's think about this. If I said worst team in the country, UMass maybe, but I would say no. Kent State, I would say probably, or Temple. It might be Temple, and we're about to talk about Temple. They take on Coastal. I mean, I watched Temple and they played Oklahoma, so that's not really fair, but they're really bad. And again, for the 3rd straight game, this is a 17.5-point spread. Coastal blew the doors off Jacksonville State in a game I misread completely. What are we doing here, and how bad really is Temple?
You're right. I think it's Temple and Kent State as the 2 worst teams in the country.
Yeah, that's bad.
My favorite play is an under here. Pace is definitely working towards that. I think 52.5 is the number I took. I'll double check that before the end of this segment. Temple is 70th in pace. Coastal Carolina is 113th, playing just horribly slow. One of the problems with Temple is, they have 5 starters that haven't played yet this year. Ian Stewart, Zay Baines, those are 2 receivers. Daiwan Black at linebacker, Luke Watson at guard, Peter Clark at tight end. All of them were projected to start, and none of them have actually started. Coastal is down to players I don't even know at running back. So they lost Max Balazar for the year before the season. Simeon Price still hasn't played. He missed the first 2 games. And they lost Braden Bennett and Javen Simpkins in their last game. I don't think either play against this opponent in Temple, and they probably just get eased back into action later in the season. So I don't know who they're going to play at running back. That's what they want to do, is pound the ball. Still, I mean, Temple just lost to Navy 38-11. So they clearly don't have a good run defense. They allowed some gaudy production to the Navy backs. 10.2 yards per carry to Texa, 8.1 to Blake Horvath. Those are not explosive players. They're at the Navy. So what is Coastal going to do? Even if it is like a 4th string back, it's probably going to be disastrous. But what I do know is this probably doesn't leave the ground very often. Coastal's already passing 26% of the time. That's it. So I'm just hoping like Temple loads the box, doesn't give up 80-yard touchdowns, and then we can get this coming under just because of pace of play stuff. Because I don't see Temple scoring. I think they were lucky to get to 11 points. Their offense has been a complete and utter disaster. They're 131st overall in the country. Just, I can't even name you a good metric, man. Like, their offense is putrid.
Tough scene. We go Owls to Owls, though. Temple Owls. Now we go to FAU Owls. There's also Kennesaw State. They're the Owls. They're not on this show, though. Here we go. FAU FIU battle. I don't think they have a name for the game.
They do. It's the Shula Bowl.
The Shula Bowl. Okay. Didn't know that, honestly. Battle for Miami and Boca. Shout out to these teams. I will take a 2-second victory lap. This guy knew Florida International was going to beat Central Michigan because Central Michigan's a disgrace. And they smoked them as pretty sizable underdogs. Now they're underdog again. I don't really get this line. I might stick with FIU, but maybe Florida Atlantic. I did see them against Michigan State, and you mentioned they held Childs to a very methodical passing output. But I thought that spoke more to him than them. What do you see in this game?
Did you watch FIU's game against Central Michigan?
A little. Nothing to.
So you watch these FCS games, but you didn't watch your team play?
It was a beatdown. I didn't need to monitor.
Okay, that's fair. I was going to ask if you saw the Iowa transfer Joe Labas throw 5 picks.
So I did catch a few of them. I didn't catch all. I was too busy watching Peyton Thorne throw 5 picks because
that game was closer. So
I mean, Lavas. That was the whole read. Was that when you play Central Connecticut State, obviously you look good. This is different. And FIU played Indiana, who is really good. Indiana's a good football team. I don't know what to make of Florida Atlantic, though. That's the mystery in this game to me.
I agree with you that Indiana is good, better than expected to. And we were pretty high in Indiana. I think overs were our play on the win total. Central Michigan is a middling team in the MAC who's on their backup quarterback right now. They're actually moving to their 3rd string, I think, because Labas proved utterly incompetent. But they haven't had Bert Emanuel all year, so that wasn't the best version of Central Michigan we could have seen. Still, like, Labas comes from a Power 5 program. He should be better than 5 interceptions. There's no excuse for that. Michigan State, I power rated below Indiana, so a bad Big Ten team that's probably a bottom 3 Big Ten team by the end of the season. And then FAU just lost to Army 24-7. That's really the concerning data point because Army lost most of their team. They have a ton of new players coming in. So week 2 of a brand new like when the armed forces are good, it's usually because they have like 18 starters returning and 100 starts along the offensive line. That is not what Army has this year. So getting beat down like that is a huge concern. This team has a lot of injuries. They already lost B.J. Alexander out for the year. They just lost E.J. Horton out for the year. He was one of the players that actually had some continuity with Cam Fancher, who can't throw the ball. Philip Dunham only played 19 snaps at safety. Jordan Church played 26 snaps at guard. Amari Hayes and Dom Henry were both under 20 snaps at wide receiver. Reporting has not been good on this team. So either those guys are injured or they're rotating a lot of their really important positions wildly, because that happened against Army. I did look at the depth chart. All those players are on it. But man, like they either it's we're heading into week 3 and they've figured out almost none of their key position battles, or guys are banged up. Just like some of these teams that play in the G5, it's really hard to get good reporting on. You know, like sometimes I feel like I'm doing more work than the beat reporters, which is not saying a good thing because, you know, like I should not be working very hard on FAU football. regardless, what we do know is Fancher is atrocious at throwing the ball. Teams have just been stacking the box on him, and it's been working. His O-line's giving him no help. When he does drop back, the pressure rate is 36.5%. That's atrocious. All his good receivers are out for the year. Not all of them, but most of them. So I don't know what to expect from this. And I think the only real concern I have with this team, FIU, that is against FAU, is early metrics on FIU's run defense have not been good. They're 111th in run defense, and where they excel is in coverage. So can this coaching staff just maybe bring an extra defender in the box and stop FAU, who's going to try to run it, but they don't have any threat to throw the ball over the top of you? At the end of the day, though, FAU is still bad on defense themselves. They're 101st in run defense. They're 127th in pass rush. I like Jenkins certainly more than I like Cam Fancher on the other side at quarterback. The FIU O-line has been better than the FAU one, which is saying a lot because neither of them are particularly good. FIU is like 3 capable rushers, though, so I think that actually works in their favor. And at this point, FIU is the healthier team. The only guy who's not playing is Rocky Beers, their tight end. So I'm with you. I would take the dog here. I took a +6 already.
Yeah, and there's a 6 out there. It is a little juice, but there's 5.5s at -110 as well. And yeah, I mean, I'll just keep jumping around a little bit, but just for context and what you said about Army, look at Air Force. Look at another service academy that got they're completely overhauled, and they got San Jose State beat. Like normally, when a service academy really, really has turnover, there's big problems. And Army, I mean, pretty decisive. I saw Army against Colgate. Not that that means much. They didn't look at the height of their powers, so you know how it is. That FAU score was a little freaky, and it solidifies my position here as well. All right, we talked about a bunch of games, but I did want to give you the floor just to go rapid fire. If there's any spots that you want to mention, again, people can follow you at Matt_Gajeski. Everybody can get access to you and me in our Discords. The links are below. But are there a couple other spots? Feel free to just ramble.
All right, so first time doing the rapid fire segment this year. I'll try to make it as efficient as possible. Sometimes it's not easy. First one, have UAB, Arkansas -21. This has moved quite a bit. I saw it was north of 24. I'm not sure I really care that much. What has it been?
24.5.
Okay. Maybe look at some alt stuff. I don't know. That's just past the key number. So like alt stuff is more in play to me once you get up past like 24.5. I would maybe just look at like a 27. Regardless, I think this UAB team is just historically bad. We saw them just lose to Louisiana Monroe 32-6, and their win was over Alcorn State. That's a team we were selling at the beginning of the year. In Arkansas, they just completely melted down against Oklahoma State. They outgained them yards per play 7.0 to 5.2, and that team was amazing running the ball. So first one is Arkansas. Have an under in Utah State at 47.5. This largely stems from quarterback play. Both teams have been banged up at quarterback this year, but I don't think Rising is going to play as a big favorite against this Utah State team. Pace is also in your favor here. So that'll be number 2. Number 3, Vanderbilt taking on Georgia State. This is one I took at 9 points, but another team I probably underrated at the beginning of the season was Vanderbilt, as they've now played pretty good football in 2 games. Second game was against an FCS team, so take that for what it's worth. But Georgia State, they played Georgia Tech reasonably close in their first game, and then they just played Chattanooga, and that score was 24-21. So a horrific showing by Georgia State in their second game. I think we can take Vanderbilt anything around 10 points. If it's a little north of that, still okay with it, but try to find something close to 10. Next, Kennesaw State, I took a +20. I think anything above a +17 is good. The value of the point here is awesome. You just mentioned San Jose State beat up on a horrific Air Force team. I think that's very much the case, and San Jose State is undergoing a complete program rebuild as well after their head coach lost. Kennesaw State, thank you, Owls. They returned to their very heavy run rate.
Yes, they did.
I was really happy to see that. So that just adds a ton of volatility, reduces the amount of plays the offense can run on the other side. The value of the point here is extremely important. So I would try to get this above a 17. I don't think it's gotten there yet, but I took a
19,
+20.
No problem on the screen. And just for context, you get 19 in a 44-point total.
That is beautiful. They do have some injuries, so I'll note that a little bit. Mace excuse me, Mason Bowers, their tackle missed week 2. Tight end is doubtful. A couple guys on defense. But their quarterback who got banged up is expected to play. And not too many players on offense. It's not a spot where I'm that worried. I did take Hawaii twice. I took a plus 4.5, or excuse me, plus 3.5, and then it moved all the way to plus 5.5, which I also took. It's back down to 4, so close to the original number. One of their corners is off the team, but biggest concern I have with Hawaii is generally anytime they have to travel to the States, they're facing Sam Houston State, who's looked pretty good so far this year, but efficiency metrics actually favor Hawaii. Just overall, Hawaii is the 74th team in the country. Sam Houston State is 88th. A lot of that probably just coming from how close they played UCLA. But this Hawaii team's actually 61st on defense. Sam Houston's 94th. And Hawaii should have more success with the air raid now that they're not throwing into the hurricane. Mississippi State, it took minus 9.5 against Toledo. I'm not buying a Toledo team, even though they did beat UMass. I think they're not quite as good as they were after they lost a lot of skill position players and their quarterback this offseason. And I think that's the last one.
Not too bad. Bunch of extra bets there, as you mentioned already. Those numbers are going to vary. Go to OddsShopper, just go to the odds screen, totally free, and make sure you're just getting the best number in your state, in your book, whatever you're getting. There's no sense to lay 11.5 if you can lay 9.5. Those things make gigantic differences over time. But we just talked about a lot of greasy games. It's a good week 3 slate. I finally thought week 2 broke our way, and we're going to build on that in here, as I mentioned, for the final time again. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Like, subscribe, share the show. We want to build this up and make sure Saturday, I expect to see a lot of you in our Discords. Those links are below. It is worth your time. Live betting, new bets pop up, injuries, things like that. Worth the time, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. So for me, for Matt, and for everyone here at OddsShopper, good luck. Week 3, college football upon us. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.